we will get started. So, hi, my name is Kevin Smith. This is the Personal Finance Lab New Features webinar for spring 2023. We have a bunch of exciting new stuff for all the teachers on our platform for this semester, and I will go through it bit by bit. So this webinar is scheduled to last for 30 minutes, and we're doing my very best not to go over that time. But if you do have any questions, please post them in the QA, and I can see them pop up as you post any messages there. So, the agenda, we have 8 new things that are released this semester. So we have Expedited class creation. I'll go over what that is. Pre and post testing. So if you already have created a class for this semester, you will see the pre and post tests have already been triggered for your class. In the budget game, we have a new feature called My Apartment. And we'll go through that in a little bit of detail. I actually talked about this last fall, but it was delayed for the actual launch until this semester. We changed a little bit of the start of the game Paychecks for the budget game as well. I'll talk about what that means for your class. For teachers who are heavily into investing and investing clubs, we have a massive update to our option spread system. For teachers who have a lot of students who are using English as a second language, we have additional languages available for both our stock game and the budget game and our assignments. We have some enhancements to our the assignment performance in general, and at the very end I'm talking about some of the stuff you're going to be seeing coming out through the beginning of this spring semester. So first, Expedited class creation. So this is when you go to create a class on Personal Finance Lab. Teachers might have already seen this before. There's a lot of settings that you can get, you can toggle on and off for your class. I think there's over 60 in total. So to make this a little bit easier for teachers using Personal Finance Lab for the first time, we have introduced an expedited class creation called Express. So if you use Express class creation, it's going to turn on a Personal Finance Lab class that lasts for 3 months using all of our recommended settings. So this means you're going to have a stock game that has stocks, bonds, and mutual funds if your site license allows it. You're going to have a budget game that uses our default settings, which is basically balanced to make the game easy for students to save a solid 10% of their income. It's going to include badges and certificates, and at the very end you'll be able to choose your assignment. So if I pull up that page here, just so you get an idea of what we're looking at, this is our new session creation page. So you'd still put a name and description for your class. My class. If you click next with the Express settings, it'll take you straight to choosing what lessons you want to include for this first week. You won't really need to worry about all of the individual settings. If you've used Personal Finance Lab in the past, you also have the option to copy all of the settings from a previous class. So again, you're not stuck having to pick and choose everything one at a time. If you do want to see all the settings and choose them, you can also click the custom button. This will let you set all the dates and all the settings for your class as you have before. If you have the Express settings, it'll also include our participation certificates, which normally teachers need to turn those on one by one. Where the Investing 101 is if students complete our investing course, and financial literacy is they complete all of our financial literacy lessons and the budgeting game. In addition to having an Express for the entire session, we also have Express settings for both the budget game and the stock game, where maybe you don't want to toggle every single one of the bills for the budget game. We just give you the defaults to it. You have an Express continue recommended settings. If not, you can always go down and adjust all of the parameters for your class. If you want more information about what all these parameters do, we'd be happy to set up a call with one of our account managers, or we have some tutorials built into the site as well, walking through how all of these work for your class. For the stock game, same thing. It'll just turn on a portfolio challenge for your class with the recommended settings, or you can again customize the settings to make it exactly how you want it for your class. In either case, once you've chosen your settings for the stock game and budget game, you will still be prompted to create an assignment for your class. You'll pick and choose which topics you want. Last semester, we added our new unit introductions and unit assessments. So if you're not sure which stuff you want to include for your class, we have everything blocked out into easy to choose units where you can just choose the closest thing to what you're trying to cover in class this week or this month. So beginning investments, in the personal finance section, there are budgeting, savings, and spending lessons, managing credit, income and taxes, risk and financial decision making, and our economics lessons too. So these are all aligned to the Jumpstart and National Council of Economic Standards, in addition to numerous state standards for personal finance. So you can pick and choose individual lessons if you like, or you can go with whole units at a time, depending on how you want to run your class. Oh yes, also the default values for the budgeting game have been updated. We updated all of the default expenses, so rent, grocery bills, etc., to reflect how prices have actually changed in the real world over the last few years. So you as a teacher can always choose values that make sense for your local area, but the defaults we kind of updated all of those to make it a little bit more realistic as well. Next new feature is the pre and post tests. So there's a lot of text on this slide. Don't worry, it's not too complicated. We've always had pre and post tests on Personal Finance Lab for at least the last 2 years. They are part of the assignment system. So when you're creating your class, there's a section in here called Assessments towards the bottom, which have the pre and post tests. These are very important to us. We use these for measuring how well our lessons and games actually help students' outcomes, for like what did they actually learn by the end of the class by going through our games. So we had a few teachers use this in the past, but it hasn't really been heavily adopted. To get a little bit better adoption of this is now going to be turned on by default for all classes. So when your students log in for the first time, they're going to be prompted to take the financial literacy pre-test. 1 week before your class ends, they're going to be prompted to take the financial literacy post-tests. Now, if you as the teacher want to see the results for your class, you'll have to include these in your assignments for your class. You'll have to include the pre-test, and then it'll appear in your reports. And the post-test towards the end of your class, and it'll appear in your reports. If you don't turn on an assignment for this, and you really don't want your students to have that hassle of answering questions when they first start their class, there is an option at the very beginning when you're creating your class to disable the pre and post test. It's on by default, but you can turn it off, which will kind of just make it a little bit faster for your students to get started. We do ask that teachers, unless you really don't want to, try to keep this on, because it is very important to us to improve the educational content of our games over time. Yes, that is the pre and post test. The next one is a really big enhancement. So this is My Apartment. So My Apartment is a very big enhancement to the budgeting game. So the problem that we were trying to address here was that the budget game is really popular with students. They like the fact that they can manage their money over time, but what they didn't really like is the fact that most of the events in the budget game were more or less random, because they come out of a die roll, and then one of the events in of the game would happen. And so they really had a choice then and there: are they going to save, or are they going to spend? And so that they thought that they should have a little bit more control over things they could spend or not spend. So on the right here, we have some of the specific feedback that we got from students at the end of the last semester. So they want to be able to choose. They want some opportunities to spend money when they want to, when they've saved up for it, rather than just when the opportunity comes. So what we're releasing is the apartment. So the apartment is a new feature of the budgeting game, where the students actually have a space that they live in. And as they're going through the game, they're making their purchasing decisions, they see the stuff that they're acquiring appear in their apartment. Also, they can see the apartments of their classmates. So they can compare how are people spending their money, how is this working out for one classmate or another. Now, the apartment is based on the user's spending decisions. So as the look and feel of the apartment itself, so the layout of the rooms, the colors and things, is based on what they chose for what they're going to rent as their apartment at the beginning of the game. If they chose something that's cheap with a lot of roommates, they're going to have lots of rooms they can't access. There's going to be cracks on the windows. There's going to be cobwebs on the walls. If they chose something that's really expensive, they're going to have sleek steel appliances, marble countertops, all kinds of things like that. There's 2 ways for the students to build up their apartment. They can either purchase items throughout the game as part of those random events that are there already, or now they have the option to purchase items directly for their apartment. So I can show you what that looks like here. Go to My Apartment. So you can see here, this is the apartment that I started with for the game. I have a folding table and chairs. I have a kind of a cheap looking bed. I have a old TV on a plywood and brick stand. So if I want to replace these or add new things, I have the option to buy new stuff at any time. And this can be on my credit card or on my using my debit card. And so I could, for example, buy a bookshelf that will appear in my office space. So here, I'll buy it here, and you can see it has appeared in the side of the room. Sorry, the room itself changed because I forgot I changed which section I was on the other screen. So now you can see this is a game where I've actually built things up over time. So I have a bookshelf, I have a kitchen table I've purchased, I have some dishes and appliances in my kitchen. As a student, I can go to the rankings page and see what my other classmates have purchased as well. The reason why students would make these purchases is the same reason they make purchases in the regular budgeting game. Buying money on things that make your life easier or better improves their quality of life score. So previously, the quality of life would go up just based on the random events, and so students might buy things they didn't really want just to get those points. Now they can really customize it in the way they want it to look and feel. It also makes it easier for students to kind of balance their spending between their savings goals and their leisure spending. It makes it a lot more clear that they can pay themselves first, pay off all their bills, hit their savings goals, then they can come into their apartment and spend whatever is left on making their place a little bit nicer. So, oops, let me go back to that. So the whole point of this is that there's improved learning to let the students actually see the impacts of their spending and the outcomes of it. So basically, the old game only let users buy things when the card came up. The new game lets them save up for bigger purchases. They can buy a new game console, and it might take them a couple of months to save up the money for a big purchase, like even like a vacation package, and they'll get like a poster showing where they went and a little suitcase showing they did some travel. It lets the students postpone purchases until later instead of just missing opportunities permanently, so that kind of helps them learn a little bit more about planning. And it just can be customized, so it makes the game a lot more engaging for students. It lets them build it out the way they want their apartment to look, and they can look at how the other students in their class have built their apartment as well. And again, it's based on the quality of life score. The way the quality of life score has not actually changed in the game. It's still based on money they didn't need to spend. It contributes to the quality of life. And so it's really, while it makes the game a little bit easier because they can plan their purchase a little bit better, it also can make it harder for some students because it gives them more temptations to spend than they would have otherwise had. So we're looking forward to getting the student feedback for the apartment this semester. For students to access the apartment in the game, right now, after they've finished their first month of the game, they'll have the option to visit their apartment on the main menu here. In the middle of the semester, we'll be making a change where at the end of each month of the game, it'll take them to their apartment automatically. That way, they'll have a little bit easier time finding it. We do have some related changes to the budget game for the apartment. There's fewer random purchase choices, so there's more fixed events in the game, and they're generally for a little bit smaller amounts than some of the choices were, and that's to reflect that students can spend money at any time now. More opportunities to earn quality of life points through the apartment itself. There's fewer events in the game that will give them quality of life points now. And those are the biggest changes here for the apartment itself. Basically, a lot of the choice events or a lot of the fixed events from the game that forced students to pay for things in the past have become choices. And a lot of the choices in the past that would just give somebody an item that might appear in their apartment, they can now also purchase those at any time. Maybe the random event will be the item is on sale, and so they could get it at a cheaper price. But the way they purchase items is now reflected in the apartment itself. Sorry. The next change is to the budget game as well. It is to the way we give paychecks at the start of the game. So in the past, the way we had the game set up is students would start work on the first Monday of the game. So for example, this is a calendar of last December, and December happened to start on a Thursday. And so I wouldn't actually start working until the Monday of the 5th, and I wouldn't get my paycheck until Friday the 9th. And that's in part-time mode where I get a paycheck every week. In full-time mode, the paychecks come every 2 weeks, and so we were having issues where students would start the game on the 1st, but they wouldn't get their first paycheck until maybe the 16th or 23rd. And so to address that, we've actually changed it so now the first paycheck starts on the first Monday before the start. So if you're in part-time mode, students will get their first paycheck on the 2nd here. If they're in full-time mode, they're going to get their first paycheck on the 9th. The reason why we made this change is that you can see here, I just started this game. I've only been in here 1 week, and I already have a negative net worth. So that was pretty discouraging to students. And so we made this change explicitly to make it easier for them to get started in the game and not burn through all their cash right away, especially since they get all of their bills at the front of the month. We don't want them to panic. So in either case, they're always going to be getting all of their paychecks in the first month of the game. It's not going to be delayed. Nothing's going to be delayed until the second month. So that's a lot of enhancements for the budgeting game. The next one is actually for just teachers who really focus on investing, particularly investing clubs. We have completely revamped the way option spreads trading works. So if you don't do any kind of options trading in your classes, this might not be for you, but if you do, this is going to be a big change. Now there's a new trading pit called Trade Option Spreads, and the way this works is that the students enter a symbol of a stock they want to trade, and they choose which of the option spreads they want to use. So we kind of help them out to build their spread. It's not kind of an open input. And the way it works is that we have a description of how this spread works. We have a chart showing how much profit is earned by this. Some of these charts are more complicated than others. Covered call, we have a lot of details here, but if you're just doing something simpler like a bear call, it's just here's where your profit goes based on the strike prices and how the underlying stock price increases. So if you're a class that does cover options in any way, some of this is going to look familiar. If your class doesn't cover options, but you have some students who are interested in it, you can include options trading for your class, and we also recommend including our Investing 101 course. Some of the later chapters in the Investing 101 course that we have explicitly cover options trading, and if students finish the entire Investing 101 course, all 10 chapters, they will earn a participation certificate or a completion certificate showing that they've finished this, that they can print off for themselves as well. Next up, we have additional languages. So we've had French and Spanish built into the trading site for quite a while, where just the trading pages themselves, like when you're buying and selling stocks or you're looking at your portfolio, those have been available in French, Spanish, and Mandarin Chinese. We've improved those translations. Those are all human translated because they're very technical terms. And so that's enhanced for this semester. The biggest change that we've made is for all of the other pages. So if you're using the budgeting game, the lessons and the assignments, and everything else throughout the site, that now also has translations available as well. These are AI powered, so they're not quite as technical as the portfolio pages, but they are available for all classes. So if you're looking at your class here, at the top of the page we have a language selector which will translate the entire site into French, Spanish, or just French and Spanish for the AI pages. If you are on one of the portfolio pages, let me go back to my dashboard and let me change back to English. I need a class that actually has the stock game enabled. These pages are still translated term by term by our various teams to make it so that we make sure that the technical terms of all of the financial terms match the real world. We're putting a little bit more effort and a little more emphasis on making sure the terms match than we do just the generic lesson pages, because sometimes the nuance can matter quite a bit. But if you have lots of students who are teaching or learning personal finance in your classes who are learning English as a second language, or even if you're a full Spanish class, the translations we have are now great for all of those students as well. This last one, I don't have a whole lot to show you about it, but this was a common support issue that we had over the fall semester, where as our number of students has been growing, the assignment system was slowing down. What we did over the winter break is we took the assignment system, we put it on its own dedicated server. What that means is that it's no longer running in parallel to the stock game, the budget game. It's running on its own, which means that it's running much faster. Assignment load time should now be almost instant in every case. If you or anyone in your class is reporting any issues with assignments, make sure you do escalate that with our support team right away, because we've been working with our developers as actually one of our top priorities to get that working 100% of the time with no load lag at all. So there's nothing you're going to see. Hopefully you won't even notice the change, but if you do, it should always be for an improvement. Last up, I'm going to talk a little bit about the stuff that we have scheduled coming through March. A lot of our emphasis right now is on classrooms with some kind of single sign-on or rostering support. So this last fall, we added Clever integration and Clever SSO, I should say, and we added integration with Canvas, Blackboard, and other LTI-enabled LMS systems. What we're doing this spring, we're starting with Microsoft Azure SSO. So schools that use an Azure system will be able to have their students sign in with their Azure accounts on PFinLab instead of entering login credentials. And then in the next few weeks, we're looking at adding support for Clever, just regular rostering, and ClassLink rostering support. This is important for bigger districts who are using us that really don't let teachers have students fill out any registration forms at all. They want full control over all credentialing, and we will be supporting that as of this semester. In the budgeting game, we also have 2 enhancements coming up. One of them, we're adding some mini games about comparison shopping. So these will trigger on the weekends of the budgeting game when the students choose to do their household chores. Some of them will be grocery shopping mini games, some other types of shopping mini games where they'll be comparing different options. Just like the game we have now for working extra hours, the game should only take a minute or 2 each time they run it, but it's a good way for students to earn quality of life points and save some money. And the last one that we really want to get out before the end of Q1 is end of month and end of game student feedback. So as students are going through the budgeting game, we want to give them the opportunity to see, compared to everyone else who's playing the budgeting game, you're spending more and you're saving less, or you're not using your credit card enough, or you're using your credit card too much and it's hurting your credit score. So we're going to be building in some feedback directly for the students to see, next month, here's the things that we recommend changing. At the end of the game, we want to give them kind of a financial health report card showing, based on what you've done throughout the entire game, here's how well you did, and here's your areas for improvement. We'll have more information on the end of month and end of game student feedback report cards as that starts to come closer to actual fruition. We'll be distributing it to teachers of what to expect. So that is everything. I did finish a few minutes early, so if anyone has any questions, feel free to post them in the QA, and I will be happy to address them.